We again are on the edge of a horrible abyss in Gaza. But where, we ask, is the quality of leadership that can pull Israelis and Palestinians back from the abyss to project hope to the victims of this intolerable violence? Because without hope, the cycles of violence that fuel and perpetuate this never-ending conflict will not end. It will instead be a terrorist breeding ground, creating the next generation of recruits for those who only hate. That is the current context which the New Zealand government is considering the vexed question of Palestinian statehood. New Zealand is an enduring supporter of the two-state solution and Palestinian self-determination. Our long-standing policy is that Palestinian state recognition is a matter of when, not if. Now, we noted the announcements by some countries in July and August that they intended to recognise Palestinian statehood this week, now confirmed. We have also closely observed the Israeli government's actions in Gaza and on the West Bank following these earlier announcements. And we have listened carefully to the arguments made earlier this week at the Two-State Solution Conference. Palestinian statehood recognition is, however, uniquely complicated given it is embedded in a seemingly intractable, never-ending conflict situation. Very few New Zealanders can recall any period of sustainable peace in the Middle East during their lifetimes. And while New Zealand is furthest away from that conflict in the Middle East, we also acknowledge the strongly held views people have about it. New Zealanders were appalled by the barbarity of Hamas' attack on Israel citizens on October 7, 2023, the worst massacre in Israel's history, and Hamas have no plan and no place in any future Palestinian state. They know only hate. Today, nearly 2 years on from the horror inflicted that day, including the continued holding of Israeli hostages by Hamas, we are shocked to our core by harrowing images of famine in Gaza. We are also revolted by what can only be described as a grossly disproportionate response from the Israeli government. However, there's an old saying about a musical instrument that sums up well the vexed question of Palestinian statehood recognition. If the string is too tight, it will snap. But if it is too loose, the instrument will not play. Those countries who hoped their earlier signalling of Palestinian statehood recognition would protect and promote the two-state solution have instead seen the Israeli government snap and continue its widely condemned military actions in Gaza, while continuing to develop illegal settlements on the West Bank in defiance of international law. The New Zealand government agrees with the ends sought by partners and acknowledges their good intentions. We commend to the leadership efforts of those countries trying to bring an end to the violence through their diplomatic efforts. We desperately want diplomacy to succeed, and we believe it is those countries with leverage who are most likely to achieve a breakthrough that would show global leadership. However, we do not believe that the current situation represents the last or even best chance to preserve the two-state solution. Rather, we think a future situation when Israeli and Palestinian political leadership is an asset, not a liability, and where other situational variables have shifted the current calculus away from conflict and towards peace, would be more conducive for recognising Palestinian statehood. Therein lies our dilemma over any decision to recognise Palestinian statehood now, because statehood recognition is an instrument for peace, as an instrument for peace also does not play, because there are no fully legitimate and viable state of Palestine to recognise. Palestine does not fully meet the accepted criteria for a state, as it does not fully control its own territory or population. There is also no obvious link between more of the international community recognising the state of Palestine and the aimed objective of protecting the two-state solution. Indeed, what we have observed since partners' pronouncements reveals that recognising Palestine now will likely prove counterproductive. That is, Hamas resisting negotiation in the belief that it is winning the global propaganda war while pushing Israel towards even more intransigent military positions. Recognition at this time, we also think, is open to political manipulation by both Hamas and Israel. Hamas will seek to portray our recognition of Palestine as a victory, as they have already done in response to partner announcements. Israel will claim the recognition rewards Hamas and that it removes pressure on them to release hostages and agree to a ceasefire. Ladies and gentlemen, because even now, after almost 2 years of this outrage, Hamas refused to give the hostages back. And then, like over 150 countries before it, New Zealand's recognition of Palestinian statehood now would serve as little more than an existential act of defiance against an unalterable state of affairs. We are not ready to make that gesture. Rather, the New Zealand government believes that it has one opportunity to recognise Palestinian statehood, and it would make better sense to do so when conditions offer greater prospects for peace and negotiation than at present. With a war raging, Hamas still in place, and no clarity on next steps, we do not think that time is now.